Hello, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to see you guys again. We had some technical errors. Chris gets to do this show twice today. Yay!
Yeah. Ooh, I'm
And
so grateful.
I know, right? It's about me. Today we're talking about gratitude and being grateful for everything. So we
Yeah.
decided, even though we probably won't have everybody on because this is, we had this scheduled for 1 p.m. Evidently the video part did not work. So you guys can go in and listen to YouTube. Chris has a fabulous show that he did for 28 minutes with no video, but it's audio. So you guys should definitely tune in to that. I mean, half the people just listen anyway, right, Chris? They just listen to
Right.
YouTube anyway.
Right.
So yeah, so that's on there. So you guys actually get double duty today. You get two shows.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah.
So,
Well,
so
I'll
that's
take full responsibility. I don't know how to work the technology, so that was totally on me. But I
hey, you
learned
live
my
and learn.
lesson. Yeah. Hey, I'm grateful. I learned something new today.
It is definitely a learning process, getting to do all this because usually Chris and I have different roles that we do when we participate in StreamYard. And so when one of us is on trying to do the part the other one normally does, we're learning. We're definitely learning. So that's cool. But anyway, so apologies to those of you that were on and trying to interact and participate with us. We did see you. We do thank you for showing up. And but here you go, you get to see us twice today. So we'll stay on with you guys for about 20 minutes, and we want to take this time again. Hi, Natalie, welcome. Oh yay, you made it. Good job, congratulations.
Thank you.
We want to talk about gratitude, even though our audience isn't just in the US. Those of you in the United States are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving this week. So we thought it would be a good time to really focus on gratitude individually, collectively, and then how that impacts community. And Chris, I'm sure you've already gone over all this, so you don't want to talk about it. But what are some of the highlights that you shared?
Well, I mean, really for me, I mean, the gratitude is revolutionized, I mean, really one of the key principles that has changed my life. And the thing that I can appreciate about gratitude is it's the act of receiving. And even when it's not an unexpected thing, but like, I shared a story about my house being robbed. And when I learned to be grateful for that situation, not only was I able to get sober and shift the direction of my life, but I also learned, how destructive I was being with materialism and how much that ruled my life and my relationships, and how that really shifted for me when my house was robbed, and then the storage unit burning down with all of my ex-wife and my stuff, as we were getting a divorce. And it was like, well, that makes everything super easy because there's nothing to argue over. There's nothing to fight over. It's gone.
Yeah.
And it was a release, and it made things flow a lot easier. And I've learned with gratitude, people showing up and wanting to help, or people leaving, choosing to leave a circumstance, or, whatever, how that allows us to grow, where if we're not grateful for it, then we're stuck in the lack. Right. And
Absolutely.
then, we create stress and drama and, trauma and all those different things. So, having the practice of gratitude, not just saying thank you, but actually being grateful for the experience, and even if it's painful, allows us to deepen our humanity and our compassion for ourselves and other people.
I could not second all of that more. I think that, I love when Thanksgiving comes around here in the US because it really gives us an opportunity to talk about gratitude in a whole new level where I think people pay more attention to it. I think everything you said is so true. I think we have to really, gratitude helps us to change our mindset. But as you mentioned, Chris, it really is about, it's so easy for us humans to hear things and take them for granted, right? It's so easy for us to say, oh, be grateful. And like my clients, I have them write lists of, for some of them, it's hard for them to even write a list of 3 things that they're grateful for. But that's only the first very, very basic step, right?
Mhm.
That's the most basic thing, is just trying to train yourself to do that.
Mhm.
When you get to a level like you're talking about, where you can actually appreciate it and really feel the gratitude, that has a whole different level of effect and power, as opposed to just writing a list.
Mhm.
So, for some people, like for most of my clients, maybe just getting through that list where they're even capable of writing 10 things they're grateful for down is huge. That can be life transforming. But there
Mhm.
comes a point where it's got to be a way of life
Mhm.
to see true transformation, for it to really come back to you, where you really have to feel it. And I could literally stop everything else I'm doing in my business. And thank you guys for your likes and feedback. I could literally stop everything else I'm doing in my business and only focus on coaching and teaching gratitude. And in my perspective, that still wouldn't be enough. That in and of itself, if I coached nothing else and people were dedicated enough to stick with it and work with me or somebody on just that as a way of life, their whole lives would be transformed. And
Absolutely.
this has been reiterated over the years, and I want to remind you guys, whether you're Eckhart Tolle fans or not, he's one of the few teachers I actually trust in our modern day world, that I follow, that validates what my soul knows. Very few people. Just because people are famous and popular, guys, doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. And one of the things that he teaches is that if you were to only ever have one prayer or to do one thing, it would be to say thank you. And he specifically says that would be enough. And actually it is. I mean, I've gotten to a point where I don't even, guys, you don't even, for mindset purposes, having that list of things to train that 95% of your mind you're not aware of to be thankful for things and thankful for everything is important. But in truth, you'll get to a point, and I hope this for each and every one of you, where all you have to do is say and feel thank you. You don't even have to take the energy or the time to come up with a whole list of things. Just, in the moment, be thankful. And the reason is because gratitude is one of the things that brings you into presence.
Mhm.
If you're truly grateful, it brings you into presence. And what I love about what you just shared, Chris, hi, Jean, welcome. Good to see you. One of the things that is so important is that when you're grateful, even if you don't understand why, but you feel that gratitude, no matter what, you're functioning at a frequency that shows that trust and that connection with source, with non-physical, with your higher self, with greater frequencies, right? And that
Mhm.
allows. So when you're grateful, guess what? You overcome resistance. What you resist persists. So if you want change, if you want healing, if you want gratitude, if you want transformation, if you want to move on, if you want to manifest, that means that gratitude affects all of that, because you don't have to like what's happening. And I think this is why we have trouble getting over this. And I'm going to shut up. I'm turning it back over to you, Chris. But the problem is, and I talked about this some yesterday with Susie in our broadcast, is that because what you resist persists, and people struggle so much to be present, if you just use gratitude, it will eventually take you into presence. It will teach you to be in the now. And when you're there, you're not in resistance. That's when what you really want to manifest and what will really fulfill you come to you. That's when you can really transform where you are. And so gratitude is not just a word or a thought or telling somebody else thank you or doing it out of a habit for a reputation. It has to actually come fully from the inside out. And I kid you not, miracles happen. I mean, as you were sharing, Chris,
Yeah.
miracles happen. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, think about your situation with that fire you had.
Right.
Such a good example. I mean, anybody you tell that to would say that absolutely sucks, Chris.
Right.
I'm sorry. I feel so bad for you. Like, what can I do for you? Like, or that was your fault, man. Like, this is what happened. Like, people have it's like, oh my God, it's something I mean, guaranteed. So many people, told everybody else, oh, why? Because we're addicted to drama and telling everyone how bad things are.
Right.
But in truth, sometimes we don't see it till after the fact. That was a total blessing.
Right. Total blessing in both accounts. And, I've shared the story, about conflict resolution. And I had a woman really angry at me because she said I cut her off in traffic. Right. And plenty of time, but whatever, perspective. And she happened to live in the same complex as we did. And I'm there with my son and my business partner, and she comes and she's just raging on me, and I just smile at her and I'm like, thank you. And as soon as I did, it was like she saw a ghost. Like, she had no clue what to say. Like, all the hostility, all the anger, all the stuff that she was carrying just dissipated because I said, thank you for your perspective. Thank
Absolutely.
thank you for the awareness. And I didn't try to justify my position or any of that other. I just thanked her. And it was like I took that pain from whatever she was going through, whatever, and just took it and was like, okay, you don't need that anymore. Shoot. And then she was nice to me every time I saw her after that. She still didn't know how to talk to me, but like she would smile,
Right.
like, whoa. But
and you know why she didn't know how to talk to you?
well, because she was probably waiting to be, arguing.
Yeah. And oftentimes too, then people are ashamed.
Right.
Because it's not what you expect. I mean, that's such a perfect example because what does the human mind want? The human mind is synonymous with ego, which is synonymous with thought. It wants resistance.
Right.
That's how the ego gets fed. So you were not feeding her ego. Therefore, her ego did not know what to do.
Right.
And, then that's when a person's true nature can actually, if it's a misbehavior they have or a misjudgment they have, they might feel ashamed.
Right.
They are forced to look at their own behavior because you didn't give her anything to fight with. So
Right.
all she was forced to deal with was her own behavior and reaction, which quite honestly was embarrassing.
Right.
And
and I think that works great for conflict resolution. I mean, thank you for your perspective or your information. I mean, trying to rebuild my relationship with my father, I've used that technique multiple times. And just thanked him for his perspective and then reminded him, like, that's your perspective. Not everybody sees that way.
Well, yeah, and you don't even have to agree sometimes. You can agree and you don't even have to explain why, right? Kind of just like you mentioned, like you can agree with them or let them have if you don't argue with somebody and give them a different perspective and try to force your opinion on them, what you'll find is they automatically assume, and this is true for everyone, they automatically assume that you're agreeing with them.
Right.
You can still go ahead and do what you want. And later they might come back to you and say, but I thought we agreed on this. Why did you go ahead and do that? But most people take the approach of arguing first and coming to that agreement first, or saying, well, I'm still going to do it my way. Okay, well, you don't even have to say that. Right. You can smile, nod, be grateful, and then still do it your way.
Right.
Then it's up to them to choose. They can be surprised. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that,
Right. Well, and I think that's I mean, I think with that being said, I mean, it adds to a conversation. If people can both have a perspective, you might not see eye to eye on a viewpoint or a way of doing it, but to find compromise, gratitude, I think, is one of the key elements to that. Like, I appreciate your perspective or the way that you've done it in the past. This is the way I've done it in the past. Now, how are we going to do it now together? Or, how are we going to walk together? And what it reminds me of is, in sales and in recruiting, we always used to don't talk at people,
Right.
but talk with people, walk with them. And keeping that open heart and that gracious and gratitude heart, a grateful heart, allows people to pull up the things that they're kind of embarrassed or maybe not wanting to share. But when you can hold that container and saying, hey, we're all human. We've all come from somewhere. We all have beliefs. We all have thoughts. We all have feelings. And it doesn't make you right or wrong, doesn't make me right or wrong. But once we can put those up there together, then we can find the unity together.
Absolutely.
Where if, we're combating each other and arguing and, oh, well, I'm right and you're wrong. Well, that's not going to get anywhere.
No, and we do it all the time just out of habit. I think it's important to remind everybody that everything is habits and repetition.
Right.
Everything. Because, you are a soul and your consciousness, and then you have a mind, and then you have a brain. Remember, guys, that brain, that 95% of your mind that is making decisions, that is running your life, you are unaware of. 95% of your mind you're unaware of. So the 5% of your mind that's sitting here listening to us, making a judgment, deciding if you like it or not, are you going to stay on and listen till the end of this or not? Which one of us you like to listen to better? That's your 5%. That 95% of your mind, and this is one of the things I help my coaching clients do, is you're not aware of. So this is why when you think you're making changes, or you're changing habits, or you're trying to break a habit, or you're trying to, improve or change your life, you're like, why am I still going in circles? Why do I feel stuck? Why am I doing all these things I think I'm supposed to, and I'm still right here, or I still can't seem to do this? It's because you're working with that 5% of your mind you're aware of, but it's the 95% you're not. So when you're doing what Chris and I are talking about, when you are applying gratitude, when you are, really applying things that are non-resistance, that are pulling you into the now, all of a sudden, that's when you're going to see the shifts. Because even if you don't become aware that 95% of your mind, obviously you've got to do that a little bit at a time. But even if you're not doing that, you can get there just by doing what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Just by accepting and applying gratitude. And here's the thing I find is so ironic, Chris, is that it's literally one of the hardest things for us to do, mm-hmm. which is why most people will never do it. I don't know about you, but for me, one of the things that, life, if we don't make the choices on our own that we need to grow and evolve and change, life forces us to.
Right.
And I learned these things by being forced into them, by putting off those hard, uncomfortable choices enough that eventually I was forced into them. And then when I got squeezed, when life squeezed me, one of the options I had left was surrender and gratitude, right. Because really they go hand in hand.
Right.
And it was only because I was forced to deal with that I discovered the most transformational and powerful tools for stepping into my power and creating change. And, when this first happened, it actually happened in college while I was at Ohio University. And ironically, when I left Ohio University, I was, I will say, arrogant enough because I didn't know enough to believe that, I'd learned that now. I'd done that. I'd stepped into my power, completely transformed, not just my life, guys, but my reality. I mean, I'd gone from like 4th dimension to 6th dimension, literally. I thought I was going to get to keep that. You know, I was what, 20 years old? Oh, I was going to get to keep that, right?
Yeah. But it
And oh,
disappeared.
I came back to Cincinnati, and within less than 2 weeks, not only were the effects that I love, the big impact. I mean, I would have never been the same, so I didn't lose all of it. But I didn't know what I did. It took me 20 years to remember and break down so I could coach it for people. What I actually did that not only moved me to a different consciousness level of awakening, but that stepped me into my power
Right.
of effortless effort, of trust, of partnership. And one of the, it wasn't all of it, but two of the things were surrender and gratitude. And I'm telling you guys this because I want this for each and every one of you listeners so badly. It doesn't sound exciting when you listen to us talk about it. It is absolutely uncomparable, life transforming when you truly tap into the power of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, if I was to look back at my entrepreneurial, career or whatever, when things went the way they, the reason that I got to a certain level was because I was grateful.
Yeah.
And when I closed down because I gained experience or I got this expectation that it should be different, that's when was met with resistance. I was even just thinking about, the first time I quit smoking cigarettes successfully for over 6 years. And I never thought I was going to go back. But I did. Just owning that. I remember I look back on a blog article just a couple weeks ago about it, and I was talking about it. And when I was having withdrawal symptoms, when I was having issues, when I was feeling comfortable, what I was doing was thanking my body for healing itself, for thanking it to doing the things that it was doing, making me uncomfortable, because it was changing what was already there into what was, what I was going towards. And I can tell you, quitting smoking that time it just fell away. Like I didn't really have a struggle with it. And I can tell you why I'm struggling with letting it go right now. And it's because I still haven't made the choice.
Oh yeah. That's so powerful. Just
It's,
realizing that, just
yeah,
realizing it's a choice. Yeah.
it's just a choice. And I've done a few ceremonies on full moons and, all that. And, they're like, oh, that's the best way to quit smoking because, spirit will help you and, all that. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I would I would make that choice. And then like a day later, I'm like, sure would like a cigarette. I think I'm going to go get one. And then, there I am right back again because I am in a slightly different spot right now where I wasn't ready to let that go.
Right.
I was still wanting that coping mechanism of giving myself something to do because my life has shifted so much that I have more downtime now, and I've been challenged with having that downtime.
I think that's so interesting, Chris. It's so interesting because, the reason my business is called My Powerful Choices is for exactly what you're talking about. Today we're talking about gratitude, so I'm not going to go into this too much, but we don't realize how many things are our choice. And what I find is whether it's with clients or students or colleagues or family or friends, I mean, I know this from doing this myself for over 20 years. We don't, myself included, we don't recognize. It took me like 20 years to teach myself to be aware that everything was a choice. And when we pawn off a choice, I mean, we can't control the rest of the world, but we always, always, always have a choice for ourselves about how our response is to something, even if we're tied up and gagged in a chair and held hostage.
Mm-hmm.
One thing nobody can ever take away from you is your own internal response to something. You always have a choice of how you respond to something. And one of the ways that the ego keeps you locked into something like smoking or any other bad habit. I mean, I'm completely addicted to sugar. I mean, don't let anyone tell you that's not addicted. I mean,
It's a
Coca-Cola, I'm
number
completely,
one addiction.
it's addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just as addictive as anything else. I'm telling you right now. And it's just so easy to come by, but the thing is we always have a reason or an excuse. I can give you guys a zillion reasons why I drink a Coke right now. But the truth is, when you come down to it, it is a choice. It's always a choice. And really, you can attest to this, Chris. It's so, instead of feeling bad about saying it's a choice, you really just feel liberated, because I know a lot of people that get offended. I've had a lot of clients get offended when we get to the bottom of things and we talk about how certain things are their choice. And a lot of people find offense there. The ego gets offended because the ego wants to push the fault outside of themselves.
Right.
Because then they don't have to do anything. If we have a victim mentality and we say, well, the world is doing this to me, or I'm doing this as a reaction or response to something you're doing, that, my friends, what people don't realize is giving away their power. When you do that, you might think that you're then not to blame. It's not your fault. It makes you feel better. But in truth, you're just handing your power away, not just to other people, but to your own ego, to external circumstances, to everyone and anything that has brainwashed you and anyone else you're dealing with in the situation. You're just handing your power away. It's like saying, here, run my life, control how I'm feeling.
Right.
And if you just take radical responsibility for it, and then you're just grateful for it, that requires you to trust you are where you need to be, when and where you need to be there. And this is where this, again, is a whole topic for a different show, but this takes us beyond judgment.
Right.
So you see, all these things are linked. And like, honestly, I hate to say this, but the whole ceremony on the full moon thing to quit smoking, that's a bunch of bullshit. We know it is. It sounds nice because it's a ceremony and people can sell it to you. But the truth is that ceremonies are wonderful, but they only have the meaning we give it. So
right.
if a person has already decided, I'm going to use this ceremony to walk me through this gate of transformation for whatever it is, maybe it's smoking, maybe it's something else,
right.
then that ceremony will work. Not
right.
because the ceremony works, not because the full moon works. This is where I go head to head with some of the spiritual new age people. It's not because of that.
Right.
It's because of what you use it for. Right.
Right.
And the great thing about Chris, and I think one of the reasons why you're a great coach and it's great to work with you, is the authenticity is there. The willingness to, it's not about having to be right. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable and honest, which allows people to relate to you. Right. Guys, I don't do, there are two people I'm doing podcasts with. I just don't do podcasts with people. And one of the reasons that I don't is because I always run into this block where the people are not authentic enough or ready to be honest enough with themselves to be vulnerable to go into what we need to do. And that's one of the great things about working with you, Chris. So, it's not a measurement of, have you succeeded in quit smoking or not? Because we all have our own stuff. Right. It's a measurement of, you're in that process, just right. like everybody. And what do you do with that process? For some people, they just, quit. I don't know. My grandfather did that. I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
Right. That was my grandfather's story too. He just decided and he was done.
But I think you're more right-brained. See, like, I'm more of a right-brained person. If you're more left-brained, you just do that. You make a decision. And it's more like a robot making the decision. But if you're more right-brained and you're creative and different situations mean something different to you and you feel in a different mood at a different time, it's not like a robot going through the day. Right. It's definitely more challenging.
Well, and that's exactly why I started, right? It was relational. It wasn't my desire, but, my ex-fiance wanted to start smoking again. And, I wanted to support her and, I made the choice, and that, that's what it was. And, there's still days where I, say, well, I quit soda. I quit this, I quit all, all these things. Like, what's left? I still want to have kind of a human experience. Like, people look at me like, you don't, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I meditate a lot, and I hang out in nature, and but yeah.
But that's enough.
Right.
I mean, being is enough. As long as we're doing what we love and enjoy. I mean, look, if I had the chance, guys, I would just hang out with animals all day and sit and make jewelry and crochet. I mean, really, I would make stuff. I like to make things. And to me, that's fulfilling enough. I mean, it's just like I love traveling. I've done a lot of traveling. But the truth is we have everything we need in the moment all the time, in whatever situation life is giving us. We have exactly what we need in the moment. And we put all this pressure on ourselves. I mean, there's nothing like the growth and confidence and awareness that I got through traveling. But we don't realize how much is going on every day in our own life that's our opportunity to learn and grow. And I do want to, something you mentioned before too, about dealing with the conflict and the gratitude. I want to, I know we'll get off probably, guys, in about 8 minutes, because I got to get going. I've got another broadcast going on this afternoon. I'm doing readings, but I want to go back, since it is our Thanksgiving week here and we are really focusing on gratitude. I want to invite all of you to, just this week, or if you don't want to do it this week, just on Thanksgiving, or even if you're not in the US, pick a day, or pick the weekend, or pick Thursday, the day we celebrate Thanksgiving here, and try gratitude to a new level. I remember I'm not going to go into details on this right now, but I remember being in exceedingly difficult situations where I was stuck with people for days, weeks, or months at a time. And I was literally, life was squeezing me and forcing me into situations. And I got so squeezed that my choices were more severe. It was react the way my ego wanted to react and suffer greater consequences for all of us, or surrender and apply gratitude. And again, I'm not going to go into all the details of this, but it absolutely, absolutely transformed my life. I want to tear up and cry every time I talk about this, even a little bit, not because I'm emotional about it, because this was almost 30 years ago. And I am blown away to this day. I have spent every day of my coaching career trying desperately to get people to just scratch the surface of this. And what happened was, instead of having any type of conflict with these individuals, I embraced and accepted them and what they were doing, and even how they were treating me. This did not mean I let them walk all over me, but I let it appear as though they were getting their way. In other words, I offered zero resistance to their behavior. And they tried for months on end to get reactions out of me. I embrace things, guys, I never would have thought I would have embraced. That doesn't mean I took on bad habits. That just meant I was grateful, I was kind, and I did the opposite of what every person's ego would do. What happened is, as the weeks went on, I did not do this to gain a place of power. I had no idea it would lead me to that. But what I realized is that weeks went on, I ended up with more and more power in the situation. And the reason is because we become the most powerful person is the person that has control of him or herself, not the person trying to control others. So while they were trying to control the situation and me, I was simply controlling my response. I listened, I was kind, I was grateful. I would offer things and be kind the same way I would if they had been treating me the way I wanted them to treat me. And what happened was, as the months went by, not only did I have the most power in the relationships, but this is for a whole nother topic, but this is how I know that I had such a huge conscious awakening, and I literally shifted chakra levels and paradigms. I got to a point where I could see through the walls. I could look down through the floor. I knew everything that was going to happen. I could hear people talking across campus. I could hear, this is where I really started hearing people's thoughts. And it wasn't anything magical. It became everyday life. And the things that I worried about dissipated because I wasn't even in a reality where that mattered anymore. And I know this sounds like some sort of dream, but it's real and possible for every single person. And it only came because I chose to apply surrender and acceptance and gratitude. There are other parts to that, but that was the basic thing. Mm-hmm. Most people I know will not take one circumstance long enough to do that.
Right.
And that probably would have been me as well if I hadn't been forced. But I did it for months on end, 24/7 for months. And after the first week, 3 days probably, I started to see major results. And so one of the reasons that I coach the way I do, and I want to keep working with people intensely, is because I know they have to work through the process of getting to a point where they're even willing and focused enough to do it. Because if I'm going to share this experience with other people and they're not going to be squeezed like I was, they're going to have to use a lot of self-control and self-discipline and make that choice in order to apply it long enough and intensely enough. I mean, if they do it once, that's great, but you're really going to see the difference when it becomes a habit. Right. And I just want to share this with you guys since Thanksgiving is here, that gratitude truly is one of, if not the most powerful tool, that if you actually learn to apply it, which is not just as easy as you think, it is actually going deep in depth with what gratitude is. Gratitude will bring you into the present moment. It will take away the illusion of the ego, and it will reveal to you the truth beyond the ego and your perspective. It stops your fears. It stops your confusion. And it stops your forcing ability to, hearing me in a new way, Jean. Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad. It's very difficult to convey this because this is an experience that I believe can only truly be shared with people by supporting them through a coaching process to support them in taking the action on themselves. I can tell you guys all about it, but if you haven't experienced it, you don't know. So my encouragement for this Thanksgiving is try it with whatever level you are at right now. Apply it in little ways, like even situations like you had, Chris, with the lady that was mad at you driving.
Right.
Start applying it in little ways. And if you don't get results, you're not doing it. If you're really actually doing it, which means you have to feel like you're losing, you have to feel like you're being weak, you have to feel like you're giving the other person all the power. In truth, you're not, guys. You're not. Because that power play, the ego makes you feel strong and powerful and in charge. But in order to understand and experience, it's actually the opposite. You're most powerful actually when you're not doing that. So if someone's arguing with me, I'll just simply say, oh, okay. If they don't want to, okay. And walk away. Well, what happens when I stop giving them resistance? They think about it. Sometimes they're even angry that you don't give them the resistance because their ego was hungry. Their ego wanted fuel for the fire. Their ego wanted food.
They wanted fed. Yep.
I mean, that's what happened to me in the story I was sharing with you. That's happened to me with friends and family. But you have to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. If they come after you screaming and yelling or throwing things at you or being angry, why is not that okay? What's wrong with that? It's their choice and you're making your choice. And I don't do it to make people angry. I don't get calm to make people angry. It's just that I'm detaching and stepping out of the ego and applying gratitude. And like you said, Chris, they'll look at you like you're nuts. Mm-hmm. I mean, Chris telling that lady, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. And I'm so sorry. And I thank you. What's wrong with that? That's another thing, Chris, I want to ask you about. Maybe it's just a guy thing. But I've noticed a lot of men don't like to say they're sorry. And women are picking up on this now too. They don't want to say they're sorry now because they think that they're giving their power away. No, you're not.
I don't know. If I have a flaw, I probably over apologize. So I mean on that aspect.
And it's an
because,
ego thing. It's an ego
yeah,
thing. A lot of men, and I'm finding women now are picking up on this, and they're trying to be like men. They're picking up on this, that they think if you apologize, it means you're taking all the blame and everything's your fault, and you're telling the other person it's all your fault. Well, first of all, I don't have an issue with that.
right,
If it takes away the resistance between me and another person,
right,
and it allows the other person to stop being resistant so they can actually communicate with me and see what's really going on, why do I
right,
care?
right,
I apologize all the time for things that aren't my fault. And I don't
right,
ever feel like I'm taking the blame.
right.
It's not about blame, guys. It's not about blame. One of the first
Well,
things I'll say to people is, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." That doesn't always mean that I did something wrong.
right,
It means it's a way of reducing resistance. It's a way of saying, "Wow, like whatever you're sorry for. You're sorry for the situation. You're sorry they're feeling that way." You don't want to say, "Oh, well, I'm sorry you took what I said that way." That's just being a shit. But,
right,
but you can say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, how can we work this out?"
right.
And they can take it however they want. And if they need to take it as though you're thinking it's your fault, who cares? And
But
if you
it's
care, it's your ego.
right. Well, and it's addressing, right? Like
Right,
it's a,
right.
I mean, there's acknowledging that there's some miscommunication or a misunderstanding or whatever. I mean, who cares whose pedestal's higher? I mean, at least that's my perspective, right? But it's
Yeah,
like
mine too.
own your stuff. That's it. It's really that simple. I'm sorry I spoke in a way that caused you to react. I apologize. Like, my bad. I'm working on that. I came from a house where you had to yell to be heard. So, sometimes that's my reaction when I'm in my unconsciousness. So I apologize for that. I don't mean to raise my voice when I feel like I'm not being heard. But if that triggers you and that upsets you, then that's never my intention. Do you
Right.
think it's my intention to harm you? Well, no, I never think it's your intention. Well, great. So now can we move forward? And it's just addressing this and it's compassion, and that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's huge. I mean, Gabor Mate talks about it all the time with addiction. It's not the addiction; it's the pain behind the addiction that causes the addiction. It's a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
So instead of blasting somebody or making them feel guilty because they're struggling, use a little compassion, um, and miraculous things can happen.
I want to Natalie, I see what you said. People put too much meaning into words. Yes. I think that's a really important comment because in truth, nothing has meaning until we give it meaning.
Right.
So you will always give meaning to a situation or what someone says or your own thoughts that serves your mind, that serves your ego. The alternative to that is the work, that we've been doing, Natalie, where you choose, you choose, you learn to choose the meaning that serves you, right? You learn to serve the meaning that sets you up for the success of where you want to go with that situation. And usually people jump to conclusions. But what you were just sharing, Chris, is a great way to help people take their guard down. And, by taking responsibility for your own part that you were giving an example for, when you do that, usually, even if people don't admit it to you or say they're sorry back, when you take the resistance away, they're forced to think, oh, because their defenses are down. What was my part? Or they'll usually say, oh, it's okay. I'm just overly sensitive to such and such, which honestly, guys, people don't always realize until you take that first step of taking that bridge down. And you know what? If they don't, it's fine. We don't want to make choices with other people based on the reaction we're going to get off of them, because we may get disappointed. Stay in your own lane. Like, that's not your problem. Right?
Well, it's manipulation, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to say it to make them feel better. Well,
right. Be authentic. Like,
right.
The thing about my story from almost 30 years ago is it was just authentic.
Right.
I realized that was really me. That was really my true nature. And whereas most people would look at that and say, wow, I was really a weak wimp. No, actually, I left there the most powerful. Right. I actually left there getting apologies from those people, with them crying and the truth coming out. But that took months for me to see.
Right.
And so if I hadn't pursued that, like, I'm still in touch with these people now, we're still in contact. There wasn't a hate relationship there, but it was because of how I chose to handle it, because I truly loved them. And I acted on that, while at the same time, I was not allowing them to hurt me. And what you find is when you step out of that ego place and you step into gratitude, you're not hurt. It's hard at first because you feel like you're being weak, but you're not. It's like in martial arts, it's like in Aikido. You gotta be soft. You have to learn when not to react right away. Mm-hmm. If you react too quick, if you try to muscle, if you're too harsh, you don't allow your attacker to come into your center where you have control, where you can use their power. And it's not that I'm trying to teach you guys to be controlling. It's that when you have people that are making judgments that are being mean or hurtful to you, you can choose to not react. You can choose to have surrender and gratitude be these powerful tools that do the same thing as the martial arts I just explained. That softness provides flexibility. Mm-hmm. And it's someone else's choice if they want to come at you and attack you. But you don't have to hurt them back. Right? And you don't have to get hurt. And that's one of the things that really good and evolved martial arts will teach you, is when and how to let them do all the action. If they're going to come at you harmfully, you be relaxed and just let them come into your center. And then you redirect that energy. That isn't you trying to control them, but that's you taking their attack and redirecting it as a way of protecting yourself and not harming another. And this can be very practical because we can apply this in everyday life, and it just the fact that you're setting an example and you're not adding fuel to the fire. I've had people scream and yell at me, well, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you answering? And then what'll happen is you'll find that you're bringing out the truth in them too, right? You bring out their true intentions. And you'll bring out their true intentions as well. Often when I've done this, people have literally screamed at me and said, why aren't you angry at me? Why aren't you reacting? This should be making you upset. Why aren't you? And of course, in that, because they can't control themselves, it's revealing to me that the whole reason they're doing all this is because they were trying to fight with me and upset me. And eventually, by being kind, by surrendering, by just showing gratitude, the person does this on their own. They end up arguing with themselves. So can you imagine how the world would be if we all were applying surrender and gratitude and just tried it for a week? If you could do it for just even 2 days, just 24 hours, the whole world would be different, guys. We wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have the political issues. It's the fact that our 95% of our mind is so easily brainwashed by politics and governments and religions and just even just mass people. We pass these beliefs on and these habits on. And for every person that can create that transformation, guys, we raise the frequency of the planet. And this is where, Chris's, the significance of the community really comes in. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to practice this as a community, but you got to be able to do it as the individual in the community, right, Chris?
Right.
What the community is.
And it's made up of individuals. So if the individual can't hold themselves accountable, then
Right.
it's challenging. And there's
Yeah.
breakdown.
I mean, you can't do it with everyone if you can't do it yourself.
Right.
I want to share one more story before we log off because I think it's very powerful again for gratitude. While I was in the process of trying to remember what I did that 20 some years ago, and I want to say this is about 10 years ago now, I was watching my cousin's kids. I was watching 4 kids under the age of 4 at least every day for a while. And it was delightful. But I'm not a religious person, guys. Very spiritual, but I love going into churches and temples. Love it. Because I can feel that essence of source there, of God there. And not everyone can feel that when they walk into a church. But it's the God is presence. So it's that feeling of presence, that stillness, that peace. And you don't need to be in a church to feel it, but I love it. So there was this church on my way home, this Catholic church. You might know it, Chris, actually, St. Cecilia.
Okay.
Love, 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 love that place. Anyway, I would stop in there and I found there were days like every Wednesday, I believe, it was just open and you could just go and pray. I don't like when there's a ton of people in there. I like just silent prayer time. And I was really struggling. I mean, I was struggling with finances, with relationships, with family, with heartbreak. I mean, you name it. I was just like a hot mess. And again, life was squeezing me. So I went in one day and I was just so upset. And I felt such peace there. And I knelt down and I went through all the things I was upset about and praying about them. And then I decided to just say thank you because I vented everything. So I was in the place where I wanted to say thank you. And I think it was because there were no distractions in the church and it was quiet and I felt that peace. And I was in a place that for me environmentally felt sacred, right? And I just started saying thank you. Now, this might not sound powerful to you, but again, guys, this is one of the things that completely transformed my life. 3.5 hours later, I walked out of that church. I still get chills. Again, I want to tear up. It's so powerful. I can't keep all the energy inside. I thank you, turned into 2 minutes, turned into 5 minutes, turned into 15 minutes. I literally got so present, guys, that I was in the state of bliss and peace that we have when we cross back over into non-physical, when we're not in a human state, when we lose our ego. But I got to experience it in human state. And the only way I can share this with you guys is to encourage you to find a way, because I cannot get most people to do this for more than 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Please, please, please find a place where you feel peace and you feel is sacred, where you're going to have no distractions. And if you can do it, please take at least 15 minutes to just say thank you, thank you, thank you, as humbly as you possibly can. Because when you surrender and you are humble and you're offering gratitude, the universe reflects it back within you. There are not words that I could ever share with you to tell you the bliss that it offers, the peace that it offers, the clarity that it offers, the healing that it offers. I forced myself to leave 3.5 hours later because I had to get home to my dogs. But I sat there for 3.5 hours in that Catholic church on that bench. And I just said thank you. And I felt completely transformed. The interesting part is it created miracles in my life because I started applying that every day. I would take time out of my day, like the Muslims do, where they set time aside, which is actually really brilliant. Mm-hmm. The ancient Muslim religion, not what you guys think, not what's commercialized, not the terrorists. There is actually a true, pure, ancient Muslim practices. And it was a reminder to be grateful actually throughout the day. Their prayer time was to stop getting distracted by the mind, and certain times of the day they prayed. So I started doing this with gratitude. And so many times a day, I would just stop to be grateful. And guys, I want to leave you with that for my part of the show today and my story, because if you take this Thanksgiving to go ahead and start applying that, I'm telling you, if you don't do it, you're not going to get any results. If you try it out for at least 15 minutes, you start making it a way of life, like Chris said, no matter what, even be grateful for the things you don't like. No matter what's happening, be grateful. It will transform your life without you having to go through therapy, go through counseling, go through all this stuff. Most people just won't do it.
Right.
It's too easy. They get bored. They don't see results fast enough. But trust me, you're getting results.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, having that practice in the morning just to open your eyes and say thank you for another day, thank you to the sun, I mean, whatever it is, thank you for breath, those are things that, thank you for the lesson, going on against something that's challenging.
Sorry, Chris, I want to say goodbye to Jean. Bye, Jean.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you for joining us. I'm glad we helped you today. Happy Thanksgiving. Sorry, Chris.
No, it's all good. All good. And I mean, it's really just that, like, if we can get ourselves in a state of gratitude, the awareness that opens up, the consciousness that opens up is far greater than the belief of what we think 15 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. It's just always opening up. It's always unfolding. It's always expanding. It's always evolving. And it's for me, that's the most beautiful experience, is understanding that we'll never be more enlightened than we are right in this moment. But later moment, we can be more enlightened than we were back then. So, I mean, that's the practice of gratitude. It doesn't seem like it's getting us anywhere, but it gets us everywhere. Because without that, we close ourselves down. We get bitter. We get angry. Oh, hey, Sebastian.
Hi, Sebastian. Welcome.
Very good. Very nice. So
let's see this. Gratitude has been the best start of my day. Oh, wow. That's awesome, Sebastian. I'm glad to see people doing this. I know, Natalie, I know that you are too. Natalie says, in and out of this space at work, looking forward to watching when I get into my Zen den. Thanks for sharing. Grateful. Awesome. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, so everybody. Much. I hope everybody has a great holiday, enjoys their family time and their time with friends and the blessings of food and community. Thank you so much for allowing us to do what we get to do, because without you, we'd just be talking to ourselves. So
yeah. Well, thanks for tuning into the second, our second episode today. So I want to actually comment about the something else about being grateful for these little things. But I think if you guys listen to Chris's first episode today, there may not be a video. You may not get to see Chris's smiling face.
Definitely not.
He had some great conversation about this there as well. And if you guys can find ways to remind yourself, of the gratitude, again, just get over that hump, especially of doing it for the things that are hard. I think one of the things that helps, I want to leave everyone with as well. I know we keep going on, but when you can get over the hump of not judging, because the ego always wants to say good and bad, right and wrong, what we like, what we don't like, because the ego is always thinking, when there's things we don't like, remember, nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. So when we give things meaning, if our ego is giving things meaning that we think isn't getting us what we want, whenever you're unhappy with something, frustrated, upset, it is because the ego believes it is not going to get what it wants. End of story. Sorry, true for all of us. If you're human, you're an ego. That's going on. So what you're really doing in self-control, in surrendering and gratitude, is you are becoming more powerful than the other people you're around, because not you're getting control over them. The most powerful person, remember, has self-control. When you get control of your mind and your ego, then you are stepping into your power. Then you're free to act from the higher being and consciousness that you are, instead of falling victim to reacting to other people and circumstances. And we can't just sit around and contemplate that. We have to make it, as Chris and I were talking about choices about a half an hour ago. It's a choice. And a lot of times, when you first start this, you have to make the choices that are hardest for you. The choices you don't want to make, because they're not the choices that are your habit. So you have to get over that hump. Once you do that, life becomes so much easier, because even when challenges come up, you just know, like, what is the habit? What is the blueprint? What is the process? You don't have to figure out what to do every time there's a challenge. You have to just step into surrender and gratitude. And this is how we create miracles. This is how, you want to stop figuring out the how for manifesting, and you want to step into gratitude, so that you're allowing the universe to step in for you, and you're aligning, right? And, I know that we both wish that for each and every one of you for this Thanksgiving, that, like, this is the year that from this point on, you guys make the powerful choice to start making gratitude a real way of life. And please just remember, it's a process. It may not seem easy to you right away. It may not seem fun. We all take advantage of the word gratitude because, oh yeah, gratitude, whatever. That's easy. It seems boring. It seems shallow. But the irony of life is that it's those things that you think are the least powerful, that have the least impact, that don't matter, that are the things that transform your life and empower you. It is the things that your mind and ego tell you, you have to do. This is important. You got to do this. You can't do that. That really just keep you going in the same cycles. So again, my wish for you is, practice gratitude at a whole new level and allow it to take you into presence. And just please be patient with yourself and remember that it is a process. Okay. Yeah. You may not see the results today or tomorrow, but your life comes from habits and repetition. So as you make it a habit, you're also going to notice that people start responding to you very differently. Do you notice that, Chris? Like,
oh yeah,
people will, it doesn't matter how long you've known somebody or what kind of relationship you have with them. They won't even realize they're doing it. They'll just start treating you and responding to you differently. And it blows me away.
Yeah. Even strangers, like, you don't even need, you
just sense it.
It's just different. Yeah. They smile at you more, and it's wild.
You end up holding space for people. See, when you're grateful for everything and you're gracious, they're going to want to be around you because you're holding a space for them. You don't even know you're doing. They don't know you're holding a space for them. You're being authentic when you're being grateful. And all of a sudden there's a safe space for other people to be honest, to be authentic, to screw up. I don't mind being vulnerable. Once you get over that hump of just being able to be grateful and surrender to the situation, when you're okay being vulnerable, other people are as well. Mm-hmm. And you allow them to be authentic instead of having all their protection mechanisms and everything up and going. Yeah. So that's something I know we both relate to. So yeah. Yay.
Awesome, Larkin. I appreciate you so much.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget, like the broadcast, guys. It will help us let people know we're here. And if you want to subscribe to our page, our YouTube page, we're just getting started. So we just have a few subscribers. That would be amazing. We're going to have some fun events coming up, actually, and a Patreon page in January. So we hope you guys will join us there. Anything else, Chris?
Have an awesome week. See you next week.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.